Hello guys, so today we're talking about COVID-19. I don't really do those daily update videos, and Florida is being destroyed by the Delta variant. So of course, we decided to talk about the top 10 most infected states. Why am I using this map instead of just doing standard Google Maps is because of course Google records so my location, and I don't want that to happen. So, we'll be doing cases. You might think, oh yeah, number one is California because they have the most cases. But there are those smaller cases that don't really have population. Population, of course, matters. For example, let's just say state A has around 50 million people and has around no has around 90 million cases. So therefore, state B has a million people and has 10 million cases. It's very unfair to say the most amount of people gain it because again, a place like Rhode Island and California, if you go by population, is far different. For example, Rhode Island has 1 million people. California has 49 people. Rhode Island only has 100,000 cases. Meanwhile, California has 4 million cases. That's basically the comparison basically here. But yep, we'll be doing per population, per 1 million population, just like the country's list. And unlike the country's list, we can include all the states in the country. Number 10, Louisiana. No surprise the South is its fair share on this list. The South usually tops negative lists, and Arizona is the first state in the South to be here. It has, and it is 10th in the nation of COVID cases per million people. Louisiana is one of the states that has always struggled with COVID. It always has struggled with COVID since the beginning. It was actually one of the first states to have huge rate of COVID, having around 20 to 40,000 cases. But Louisiana has battled COVID like 4 or 5 times already. Basically, Louisiana is used to it by now. Louisiana also is also one of the states that refuses to COVID protocol, which refuses to listen to COVID recommendations, and it's one of the states that refuses to listen to it the most. So the states on this list basically are the states that refuse to listen to COVID regulations. Basically, just follow them if you have COVID regulations in the state. Again, I'm not going to really tell you what to do and what you can't do. That's not really my job. That's really the government's job. But Louisiana has 127,111 cases per capita, and the state has around 11,000 deaths. We'll be covering deaths per capita later in a different video. Number 9, Arizona. Arizona is the only, it's one of the few states in the Sun Belt. Actually, the Sun Belt includes the South, but I'm talking about this side of the Sun Belt. Arizona, you'd be surprised. You won't be surprised that this state has a lot of cases. But it actually has one of the lower amount of tests per million people. Despite this, Arizona has around 140,236 cases per capita. Arizona, again, is a very urban and densely populated, is a very urban state. There is not really many rural areas. So, no surprise that in densely packed urban areas, and actually I think it's the second most populated state on the list, having around 7 million people. Number 8, Iowa. No surprise that Iowa is on this list. Iowa is basically just a bunch of cornfields and farms. But there are some cities in Iowa more towards the Mississippi River. And no surprise that it's spread in Iowa. Illinois also got hit pretty bad alongside Missouri. But both of those are not as badly hit as Iowa. Actually, it's actually not the only Midwestern state on this list. There are 2 more Midwestern states on this list. I'm not going to tell you them, but again, this state only has 3 million people, so this is basically another population thing. Yeah, and Louisiana has 4 million people. Iowa has 141,000 cases, 214 cases per capita. So, number 6, Arkansas. No surprise, Arkansas always reaches these bad lists. You'll be surprised that Alabama and Mississippi are only 13 and number 14. Yep, they're not on this list, but Arkansas is. Oh wait, we skipped a state. Number 7, Florida. No surprise Florida is on this list. Florida is one of the most visited states in the country. Everybody wants to go to Disney World, and because California is going crazy with the liberal politics, Florida people want to go to Florida. And the governor basically said, "Oh, you can do whatever you want in Florida. There are really no restrictions in Florida, and everybody wants to go to Florida." And no surprise, the cases are rising in Florida because it's summer and people want to go places. Says. And no surprise, by the beginning of July, cases started to rise because that's when basically tourist season comes around and everybody wants to go to Florida. The other time is around December, and of course Florida refuses to does not force people to wear masks, or does not, is a very, very lax free state. And this is why Florida is on this list. It is the only big state on this list. And unless they count Arizona as a big state, which it really is not, doesn't even have 10 million people, but I would think it would be a medium-sized state. Florida has 141,646 cases per capita, and it's rising fast. It probably won't beat number 1, number 2 anytime soon, but no surprises on this list. Number 6, Arkansas. Yep, we're back to Arkansas. Sorry I skipped Florida, but yep, Arkansas, no surprises on this list. Arkansas is basically the butt of all jokes of America. It's really sad, honestly. Arkansas is considered one of the poorest states in the country, and no wonder why it has a lot of cases. It has 134,294 cases per capita. Yeah, but again, Arkansas only has 3 million people, which is not a lot of people. When you compare it to a state like New York, New York, for example, is only down at number 24, but New York has 19 million people. And Illinois has around 1.4 million, but has, of course, 12 million people. It's really because of Arkansas not really having a large population. And yet, most of these states really don't have large populations besides Florida. Whereas, again, everybody wants to go to Florida, so no surprises on the list. Compared to California, which is far lower. But again, California already is losing its popularity due to its reputation. Number 5, not going so far, is Tennessee. Tennessee is no surprise on the list. Tennessee has around 145,000 cases per capita. The Tennessee has nearly 1 million cases of COVID. That is a lot for Tennessee. This state basically is one of the worst infected. So basically, if you're passing for Tennessee, make sure you get vaccinated or in these states, or else you will going to get the evil COVID. So yep, there we go. Number 4, Utah. This is actually, we're out of the south for the rest of this list. Utah, again, no surprise, it is a very, very, very strange state. Utah is actually a relatively wealthy state and has regained popularity over the years. But again, Utah, we haven't been on this list last year, but it had a massive wave during October. Yep, a huge, massive wave. COVID isn't really that big in Utah anymore. It is rising in the state, but it's really because of that big wave during winter, where everybody was forced to stay home because Utah is also a pretty cold state. Utah actually has the least amount of deaths per capita out of the top 10, being only 781. Number 3, South Dakota. Surprise South Dakota is on this list considering its neighbors are not really that infected besides North Dakota and Iowa. Montana, Wyoming, Nebraska, and Minnesota don't even come close to these two states. For example, Montana, which is below the U.S. average, Minnesota, below the U.S. average, and Nebraska is below still the states. It's at 16. And Wyoming is far below those states, but again, Wyoming has basically no people. But South Dakota's high cases is very odd considering its neighbors besides Iowa. Well, I think it's mostly because of the government's mishandling compared to the states surrounding it besides Iowa. Again, mishandling is always the key. The state government probably mishandled COVID a lot. And it has a staggering 141,697 cases per capita. But ever since the massive second wave in South Dakota has not really seen much cases of COVID. It really has no active cases. And you don't really have to be worried about COVID. It's because of winter, there was this massive winter wave, so they basically suffered. So, number 2. This is the state I mentioned in the beginning of the video, Rhode Island. Rhode Island is likely on this list because of its small population and because of winter. Rhode Island, the New England states have done pretty well, except of course Rhode Island. For some reason, Rhode Island is the one outlier out of this entire list, being at number 2. Yep, Rhode Island, the state that everybody forgets. Yep, they have the second most COVID cases per capita. And I believe out of all these ones, out of all the states in the top 10, they have the highest deaths per capita as well. No, it's kind of shocking considering that most of the New England states have done pretty well against COVID-19. If you compare Rhode Island to rest of, say, Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire, most of those states are near the bottom. Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine are near the bottom. Connecticut is not far above it, and Massachusetts is by Minnesota. So all the New England is below the national average, except for Rhode Island. Rhode Island is just the one outlier that does exist, and that is because of its small population. Rhode Island only has that's barely over 1 million people, and yeah. But again, Vermont doesn't only have many people in New Hampshire, but Rhode Island is far more urban than New Hampshire and Vermont and Maine. Where Maine, Vermont, and Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire also have better governments than, of course, Rhode Island and Connecticut, and even Massachusetts. So yep. So what is number 1? North Dakota. North Dakota is actually the least populated state on this list. Like South Dakota, it had a massive wave during the winter because of the cold weather. And again, just like South Dakota, really, it hasn't really experienced anything related to COVID. Yes, there's a slight rise in Delta variant, but I don't think North Dakota residents really have to worry about COVID anymore. And yep, that is the number 1 state in COVID per capita. So yep, California may be number 1 in raw cases, but if you look at the per capita, California is far lower, though is actually below the national average as well. And many big states besides Florida on this list is below the national average. Even a state I thought would make it, like New Jersey, didn't even make the top 10. It was at 18. And there were some states that were outliers in top 20. The honorable mentions are Oklahoma, South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, which again are no surprise on this list, and Wisconsin. Again, that's attributing to its lower population than the rest of the Midwest, is actually the 4th Midwest state on this list, unless you count Kentucky. No, Kentucky wasn't on this list. But yep, Wisconsin again it is because of winter, there was a massive spike in cases. But yep, there we go. So yep, most of these states, with the exception of Florida, are doing much better in terms of COVID. And Florida is because of people visiting Florida because of summer and because people want to see the beaches of Florida. No surprise that southern states are seeing a rise in cases. It's not just Florida though. It's Texas, California, and other states as well. For example, California is starting to catch up to Florida as well, having 6,000 cases a day. So yep, there we go about this video. Goodbye.